My fellow Americans, our movement is far from over. In fact, our fight has only just begun. We are one movement, one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. So with American pride swelling in our hearts and American courage stirring in our souls, I say these words to you tonight. We will make America great again.
Yes, Tuesday sucked, but President Trump continues to absolutely crush it. We just got a huge win in the Supreme Court. All the while, Trump is literally gutting the entire system. The government is completely unrecognizable from this time last year, and he's just getting started. We'll also be talking about what's being done to rectify what happened on Tuesday to make sure it never, ever happens again, and how we're preparing for a massive win in the midterms 1 year from now. Greetings, everyone. It is Live Stream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of the madness as the radical left, and they're getting more and more radical, and they're also getting more and more desperate to try to stop the unstoppable. The inevitable rise of a new conservative age that you are making happen all over the world. So if you want a front row seat on how you're changing the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. There it is. Smack all them bells there. You do not want to miss a single episode. As always, we've got a jam-packed show for you today. Our super chats are up, so feel free to send in your comments or questions. It'll be my privilege to read them and answer them throughout this live stream. Also, I do want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that's our amazing friends over at Block Trust IRA. So if you've been wanting to get into the crypto game, especially to escape the fledgling Wall Street globalist system, gang, this is it. This is the best opportunity you're ever going to get. If you don't know, the crypto revolution that's happening right now represents the single largest wealth transfer in American history. Over 80,000 new millionaires were created last year because of crypto. But of course, I get it. The turnoff is its volatility. The extreme highs are great, the 30, 40, 50% returns. But what about the equally extreme lows? Well, guess what? Your experience of that volatility is now officially a thing of the past. Meet Block Trust IRA. They have a super AI system that Bitcoin Magazine is named the #1 crypto technology platform in the world. And that's among 1,500 global competitors. And what that super AI does is it works 24/7 to analyze global market data, and it predicts with uncanny accuracy the highs and the lows of crypto volatility. And so Block Trust IRA sells at the highs, and then they buy again at the lows, which mitigates the volatility. All the while you stand to make incredible gains. That's why I'm a proud client of Block Trust IRA. I have my own account with them, and I can honestly say, gang, I love them, and I think you will too. So if you've never gotten into the crypto game yet, let Block Trust IRA ease you in. Click on that link below or visit turleytalkscrypto.com and find out how they can help you join the Trump financial revolution that's finally giving forgotten Americans access to the greatest crypto wealth opportunity in history. And the best part, for a limited time, they're going to give you $2,500 in bonus crypto when you open up an account with them. How's that? So don't wait. Visit turleytalkscrypto.com. That's turleytalkscrypto.com. All right. Let's start with, the overall sense of what this week was and what happened there. I was just talking about this with our Courageous Patriots Club and what members in one of my Turley walks, which is an exclusive content for our club members. But I'll share with you what I shared with them. Bottom line, this week I think was a bit of a shock to all of us because up until Tuesday, I think we all collectively felt unbeatable. We felt undefeatable. And in one sense, we are. This is what Steve Bannon never tires of reminding us of, even after Tuesday. They can only win when we quit. They can only win when we quit. We are defeat-proof as long as we fight, as long as we stand strong and march forward. There's nothing the Democrats can ultimately do. That's precisely what 2024 proved. But that said, the Democrats clearly drew blood on Tuesday, right? And I think that was a bit of a shock for many of it. It reminds me, I think wasn't it Rocky IV when he's fighting Ivan Drago at the end? Literally like a satanic dragon, and then Rocky, Rocky's fighting him, and all of a sudden he gets this massive punch and hits Drago, and all of a sudden Drago kind of, he's undefeated up to that point, and he kind of looks down and he sees Rocky drew blood. I can bleed. Holy crap! I'm mortal. That kind of. I think there was a little bit of that because we've just had for the last year win after win after win after win after win after win after win, and so all of a sudden Tuesday, bang, we got hit. And so what I want to do with you today in our live stream Friday is I want to steal your resolve. I want to go over the growing list of those wins that Trump is racking up even now as we speak, in both the Supreme Court and in his continued complete revamping, reshaping of the nation around thoroughly American first principles. And then I want to look at what the administration is doing right now to ensure that what happened this week never, ever happens again. It's really, really good stuff. And then we'll take your questions and comments, see what you think in all this. So make sure to stick with me through this entire video. I think it's going to make your weekend. All right. So let's start with the latest victory in the Supreme Court. The conservative justices have once again handed President Trump yet another massive legal victory in a 6-3 decision. The court, Josh, are you falling asleep there? Put up that headline. We need some headline. There we go. In a 6-3 decision, the court sided with Trump administration's policy requiring passports to reflect biological sex at birth, either male or female. That's it. It's the closest thing we've gotten for the Supreme Court to declare there are indeed only two genders. And this is ending the Biden era practice of allowing people to choose an X gender marker, whatever that means, right? I mean, these are passports, gang. These are passports. These are things you have to show, right, to Homeland Security and at the airport. And you're putting an X? The court's conservative majority was crystal clear. Displaying passport holders' sex at birth no more offends equal protection principles than displaying their country of birth, right? In both cases, the government is merely attesting to a historical fact without subjecting anyone to differential treatment. No one's getting differential treatment here. This is just bottom line biology for everybody. And it's exactly right. I mean, passports are identification documents. They are identification documents not meant to reflect identity politics, but rather identity reality, not feelings, not ideology, not far left kookery, not wokeness, reality. So this is actually a policy, if you don't know, marking the X there, it goes back to 1992. So for the last 30 years, applicants could change their passport gender markers with if they had medical documentation and the like. But Biden, of course, made it even, AutoPen made it even easier in 2021 by adding the X option, removing medical requirements. So President Trump ended that nonsense. And now the Supreme Court has his back in yet another win. I believe it's the 30th or 31st win in a row. And it is yet another blow to the woke agenda. Wokeness is dead. Let's just be blunt. We've said it oftentimes on this channel, but this is just yet another confirmation of that. Wokeness is dead. Just ask Bud Light. Just ask Disney. Just ask Netflix. Just ask Cracker Barrel. Wokeness is dead. even among half of Democrats, like Bill Maher. Wokeness is abhorrent. They want nothing to do with it. And this Supreme Court win is yet another nail in its coffin. And that win just complements the way Trump is indeed absolutely transforming the whole of how the nation functions. After 10 months back in the White House, the results are frankly undeniable. And they are exactly what America voted for on November the 4th. So let's start with the latest on Trump's mass deportation effort. I don't know if you've seen the latest numbers. They were even bigger than I realized. Since January 20th, 2.6 million illegal aliens have officially been removed from our streets. 2.6 million. That includes 515,000 that were forcibly deported, that were arrested and deported, 1.6 million who have self-deported, and another 485,000 that have been arrested and are awaiting deportation. And Border Czar Tom Homan is saying that as time goes on, this number is only going to compound. It's only going to steadily increase as the deportation infrastructure becomes more and more refined. So right now, ICE has about 4,500 officers working nationwide. That's it. 4,500 officers were able to accomplish this 2.6 million, or if we're going to be very specific, just around the 1 million forcible deportations. That's pretty darn impressive. That number is only going to grow. Thanks to the big, beautiful bill, we're seeing an influx already as we speak of tens of thousands of new ICE agents, more than tripling our enforcement capacity. So if you thought 2.6 million removals was impressive, just wait until these new officers hit the street and 3x those numbers. But it's not just about securing our border. President Trump is also draining the swamp from the inside. Now, part of what animated Northern Virginian voters is that about 100,000 of them are now unemployed. Since taking office, 100,000 federal bureaucrats have been removed from the payroll. That's 100,000 administrative state operatives who were leaking classified information, sabotaging America First policies, blocking real reform at every turn. Their firing saves taxpayers $11 billion. That's billion with a B annually, while clearing out the anti-American roadblocks that plagued Trump's first term. President Trump has also revoked over 80,000 visas held by foreigners who don't share our values. And he slashed the 2026 H-1B visa allotment by 25%. So what does that mean? It means more opportunities for actual citizens in our universities and our workforce, right? We should not be prioritizing foreign workers when Americans are looking for jobs. Now, of course, Trump is thinking even bigger. We've seen it this week. He wants to make these victories permanent. He's calling on Senate Republicans to end the filibuster and pass sweeping America First legislation. So we're talking voter IDs, restrictions on mail-in voting, one-day voting, rock-solid election integrity measures, and the like. These are the kinds of reforms that will prevent Democrats from ever rigging another election. And with every day that this government shutdown lingers on, there's going to be more and more pressure for Senate Republicans to do just that. And Trump is right. Look, when all is said and done, the filibuster is dead. Okay, if Republicans don't act now, Democrats will eliminate the filibuster the very second they regain power. The filibuster is dead. It's only a matter of who'll kill it. And it's not a matter even of whether it's right or wrong. This is why I can't stand with the National Review crowd. What is it? Charles Cook the other day sent out a tweet. The filibuster, he's from Britain. The filibuster is one of the most essential elements of federalism and an instrument of important Democrat, and he started waxing eloquent. Dude, it's irrelevant. It's not a matter of prescription. It's description. This is, again, it's kind of this bizarre, academic, ideational pseudo reality. Dude, this is reality. The filibuster's dead. It's dead. It's just a matter of who's going to kill it. It's right or wrong. It's dead. So it's time for Republicans to get tough, get smart, and win. So with all of that in mind, speaking of winning, right? With all of that in mind, what are the prospects of the GOP winning the midterms in the face of what just happened on Tuesday and Tuesday's Democrat blowout? There are, as we assess all of this, as we survey the wreckage and the fallout here, right? There are three overall perspectives on what happened on Tuesday and how to move forward. Okay, so if you want to write these down, share them with your friends, family, and all that good stuff. There are three full-orb perspectives on what happened and how we should effectively respond. First and foremost, there's what I like to call the historical view or the contextual view, meaning that what happened on Tuesday, as much as it hurt, is actually the historical norm, right? This is what always happens the year after a new party takes the White House. Just ask Obama. It happened the year after Obama, right? When we saw what's his name? Chris Christie take New Jersey. What was his name? Bob McDonald, a Republican, took Virginia in 2009, just the year following Obama's inauguration and massive blowout win. This is so that's actually a good pattern. So in Virginia, you may not know this, in 12 of the last 13 governor's races. So we're talking, this is going all the way back to what, 1979, I think, 77, I forget, 1970s. In 12 of their last 13 governor's races, the party not in the White House has won the gubernatorial contest. So we talked about this before. This is one of the reasons why Virginia was so far out of reach for the Republicans in a way that it wasn't in 2021 when Biden was in the White House and Youngkin won Virginia. But that's the pattern. The lone exception was 2013 when Terry McAuliffe beat Ken Cuccinelli the year after Obama was reelected. But other than that, Virginia always votes the opposite of the party in the White House. And they did that yet again on Tuesday. So this is what's known as the historical perspective or the contextual perspective. What happened on Tuesday is not different from what normally happens the year after a Republican wins. Now, some will say, well, look at those blowout margins. I mean, the Republicans got crushed by like 14 freaking points by the Democrat, and they won a supermajority in the state house. Yes, Democrats came out en masse in Virginia, no question. But ironically, only in certain key and deep blue counties. They were definitely able to post some very incredible, awesome numbers. They flipped a number of Republican seats. But again, given the blueness of Virginia, those were Republican seats where Trump won those districts by less than 3 points. Seats where Trump won by more than 3 points, they were safe. They all won re-election, or they all stayed red. So while the turnout in Virginia was certainly impressive in accordance with these historical norms, it was also rather regionally specific. It was centered around the urban areas. It was centered around Northern Virginia that's still reeling from unemployment from the federal government. But the solid red rural seats, they stayed safely in Republican hands. So what the GOP suffered on Tuesday is a very predictable phenomenon in American politics known as a refractory period, right? You may not have heard of that term before, but that's the technical term for this dynamic of this pendulum swing in politics that we see from one political side to the other political side, from one election to the other election. It's known as a refractory period. It's a period of time of political inactivity after a big win. So what scholars of political scholars and I should say political operatives have noticed is that it's very difficult to maintain the level of political enthusiasm and momentum needed to win an election. It's very hard. What we pulled off in 2024, we worked our asses off for, right? So what tends to follow after victory is, we're good with it. It's just the natural, organic sense. All that time, all that energy, all that money starts now to go that went into this massive presidential win. It goes in other things. We get back to life. And we're happy with what happened. We like the fact we'll take the White House over Virginia any day of the week, every single time, right? And so this is what's known as we just are not that winning local elections isn't as big of a deal as winning the White House and both chambers of Congress. So refractory periods are notoriously difficult to overcome, and that's what we saw on Tuesday. Democrats and left-leaning independents were chomping at the bit for the last 12 months to get to the polls and stick it to Hitler, whereas Republicans and right-leaning independents were perfectly happy with Trump and the Republicans in federal power. They'll take the White House over Virginia or New Jersey every single time it's offered. Every time. So that's the first argument. The first argument is historically what happened on Tuesday was really no big deal. The president's party almost always gets around the first off-year election after taking power. And Jim Garrity actually just wrote a good article on this. He was talking about this in rather sympathetic terms towards Trump. He said, it's not right to blame Trump. This is not his fault. If the GOP is going to have a bad year, they would much rather have it in the first off-year election than in a 4-year cycle where they're likely to, lose governor's races. And they're more, sorry, they would rather have it in the first off year in a 4-year cycle where they're likely to lose the governor's races in Virginia and New Jersey rather than blow it in the midterm election or blow it in the presidential year. Again, we'll take the presidential election and midterm elections every single time over Jersey and Virginia. We don't give a flip, or Manhattan for that matter. We don't give a flip about them. There are better and worse times for a party to be unpopular. And this is only a mildly bad one. If we're going to suffer a loss, this is the one to suffer. If 1 year from now, voters in other states perceive Republicans better than the voters in New Jersey and Virginia, which they most likely will if the economy starts heating up like it looks like it's going to, the GOP should be okay and in good shape. So that's the first perspective on what happened on Tuesday and where we go from here. The second perspective, however, is far, far more dire. And it is the one that we have to take very, very seriously. But first, if you are just joining us, our super chats are up. So feel free to send in your comments and questions. I'll be happy to answer them on our live stream here. Yeah, you want to put that address up? Go ahead, Josh. Put up that. There you go. So you can go, I guess you can go to our Turley Talks app as well. You can do all kinds of things. But anyway, if you want, our super chats are up. So if you want me to answer your questions, I always get those Krusty the Clown kind of things on my hair. I don't know what that is. So it's a Professor Do, I guess. If you want to send in to your Patriot Professor. All of your comments and questions, super chats are up. Go ahead and do that. It'll be a good time for you to do that now, and I'll be happy to answer them in due course during this live stream. Also, it's a very good time to remember that every one of us has to make sure that we take the steps necessary to protect ourselves and our loved ones online. And that actually begins with your home title. If you're a homeowner like me, you need to ask yourself one question. When was the last time you checked on your home title? That's the only legal proof you have that you own your house. Well, if you're like me, the answer is never. And the problem with that is that all of our titles are online. And in today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing our home titles like never before. And then they're using our equity as their bounty, as it were. And it's easy. It's insanely easy. Criminals forge your signature on one document. They use a fake notary stamp. They pay a small fee, and boom, that's it. Your home title has been transferred out of your name. And then they take out all these loans. Some even sell your property, and you won't know it until you get collection notices and foreclosure notices. So that's why you need to stop what you're doing right now and find out today if you've already been a victim. Use promo code Turley Talks at HometitleLock.com to make sure your title is still in your name. You'll get a free title history report along with that. Plus, they're also going to give you a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. So that's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes. And if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Go to HometitleLock.com right now. Use promo code Turley Talks. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code Turley Talks. All right. The second take on what happened on Tuesday is the polar opposite of the first one. What happened on Tuesday is a very ominous sign for Trump and the Republicans. It's basically a sign that the Trump coalition is collapsing and that the Democrats are going to have an absolute romp in 2026. It's going to be 2006 all over again when Nancy Pelosi first became Speaker. And this is coming from the likes of Rich Barris of the People's Pundit, who was the single most accurate pollster 2024. We've had Rich on the show, dozens of times, it seems. It's coming from Mark Mitchell of Rasmussen, again, one of the most accurate pollsters of 2024. He's been on the show a number of times. Political commentator Robert Barnes, he's been on the show, a number of others. And the argument basically goes like this. The Trump coalition, the coalition that gave the Republicans the single biggest landslide victory in 2 generations just 12 months ago, was basically a transformed Obama coalition. Okay, Newsweek ran a whole article on this a few months back. The Obama coalition of 2008 basically transformed into the Trump coalition of 2024. And the study found that 3 of the 4 main groups that made up Obama's coalition, so that would be white and non-white working class voters, Latinos, and Gen Z men or young voters under 30. They may have been called Gen Z back then, but young voters under 30. The 4th group are black voters. But of those 3, all of them defected en masse and voted for Trump in 2024. That's how he was able to pull off a feat that not even Obama was able to pull off, winning all 7 swing states. Working class voters, Latino voters, and Gen Z men. They defected en masse and voted for Trump at numbers we simply have never seen for a Republican candidate. What happened on Tuesday is that those very voters, what are often referred to as sort of disaffected independent populists, either didn't show up or worse, they switched back to the Democrats. So you got to get that. That's the argument. And Barris has, and Mark Mitchell, they have all the data to back that up. In both Virginia and New Jersey, Democrat gubernatorial candidates won Latino voters by massive margins. We're talking 70 to 30. That's Mitt Romney levels of Latino support or lack of support for the Republican. Latinos went back to voting Democrat 2-1. Trump got 46% of the Latino vote. He won Latino men by 10. And on Tuesday, that disappeared. It disappeared. There's no candy coating that. It disappeared. Young men under 30, a demographic Trump also won by 10 points in 2024. They swung back to the Democrats. Spanberger in Virginia and Sherrill in New Jersey won young men under 30 by 15 points and 14 points respectively. And then the big one. The big one, which primarily was in Pennsylvania in the vote to not it wasn't a real, I guess it was in effect a recall vote. I always forget what it's called, but it's a vote to whether or not to keep 3 liberal judges on the Supreme Court. Retain, that's it, retention vote. I always forget that for some reason. I remember all these other dumb things, but I can't remember retention. I remember refractory. In Pennsylvania, we saw working class counties like Erie County and Northampton, which are both bellwethers. In a presidential election, he who wins Erie and Northampton wins Pennsylvania. They're bellwethers. They are solid working class counties. They went solid red in 2024. And on Tuesday, it wasn't blue, it was dark blue. Same with Lehigh County. Gone. They're gone. And so the reason why we do need to be concerned about all of this is that we're seeing the Trump coalition unravel at a micro level. This is not about blue states. This is not about just another off-year election where the party not in power in the White House ends up doing really, really well. This isn't just about blue states voting blue and, those who voted for Kamala are just doubling down on their absurd. No, we are actually watching the Trump coalition unravel in real time. Now, again, this was not in all states. Arizona, we crushed it. The Trump coalition was still very much in together. In Texas, we crushed it, where they're requiring a proof of citizenship in order to vote. But in Jersey, in Virginia, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, even in a couple of seats in Mississippi, we're seeing working class voters, Latinos, and young men defect over to the Democrats. And of course, the question is why? Why are they doing this? What's happening? I thought we were rocking. Well, according to Fox News, we are. Fox News is pumped up as they've always been over these last 10 months or so. Well, full year since Trump was elected. Fox News Republicans aren't the problem. Fox News Republicans showed up. Jack Ciattarelli got 100,000 more votes than Phil Murphy, the Democrat, got back in 2021. That's not the problem. They show up. Republicans show up. But they can't beat Democrats who show up and then bring all of these now left-leaning independents with them, whereas the Republicans show up and they turn around to look for their, independent populist MAGA voters, those Latinos, working class, and Gen Z men, and they turn around and they're gone. They're not there. Or some of them have even migrated over to the Democrats. So what happened? And Rich Barris argues the data that he has, Mark Mitchell argues the same thing. They were both seeing the same thing. And remember, Mark and Rich talk to MAGA faithful every day at the grassroots level. Every day. They know these voters like the back of their hands. And what they found was right around the Iran strikes, the Iran nuclear facility strikes. Again, that Fox News was touting like it was Top Gun Part 2 Maverick. Ironically, that's when these voters, who remember are disenfranchised, They are disenfranchised, independent, populist voters who do not feel like anyone in the mainstream gives a shit about them. Except Trump, by the way, right? But then they see Trump bombing another Middle Eastern country, and they're like, so this is Bush 2.0? That's what I voted for? And while Trump was getting record highs among Fox News Republicans, his approval was going into the toilet among these very groups. And that's what you got to get. Again, it's not the Fox News crowd. They're the Republican faithful. They're gonna vote Republican no matter what. They're high prop voters. They're gonna come out no matter what. It's among these groups of disaffected, independent populists, working class, Latinos, young men who made up the power and the overwhelming numbers of the Trump coalition. So back in May, before the Iran strikes, Trump had a huge, very high approval rating among these people, well over 50%, very high. By July, a month after the June bombing, his approval rating tanked. It tanked. And that's when you began to see it go under the 50%. And so, and again, I'm saying tanked among this group. Didn't tank with Fox News, didn't tank with mainstream Republican voters. It tanked among the disaffected independent populists that make up that massive margin that enables MAGA to dominate. And they either did not show up or they defected. So these specifically populist independents began to believe that the Trump administration was focusing way too much on issues that matter so little to them and was actually dismissing the issues that do matter to them. And Epstein hurt Trump, again, not with the Fox News crowd, with these disaffected independent populists. They've seen no accountability with Epstein. They've seen no accountability with Fauci. Remember, many of these disaffected independent voters are Maha. They're the 10 million Maha voters that were and are Bobby Kennedy fans. Or Bill Gates, for that matter. They haven't seen any accountability with him. And let's make sure we understand this. They don't hate Israel. But they simply cannot understand why our political class appears to be so Israel obsessed, rather than obsessed about the issues they care about. This is exactly what Tucker was saying with Megyn Kelly the other night. So what this amounts to is that Republicans can get out their high propensity Fox News voters and get all of this splashy coverage on Fox News, all the while the disaffected independent populists, low propensity populists who joined them en masse in 2024, either goes back to sitting out elections or, even worse, rejoining the Democrats. Remember, this is so key to get here. These people are not seeing left versus right. We talk about this all the time on this channel. We have to make sure we're applying the frames of reference that we use to analyze politics, right? Fox News Republicans will never vote for a Democrat because for them, the political divide is horizontal. Well, they may vote for Cuomo over and against Mamdani, right? But even that is a lesson because, there is such a thing as a Trump Mamdani voter. About 9% of Mamdani's voters voted for Trump in 2024. That's the data that we're finding. And it's because for these disaffected independent populists, they're not looking at politics as left versus right. They're looking at it as the people versus the political class, right? We talk about how populism by its very nature realigns the political divide. We generally think of a political divide as horizontal, left versus right? Democrat versus Republican, liberal versus conservative. They don't see it that way because they don't trust either party. They think both parties suck. Instead, they're seeing it as a uniparty made up of two different parties, as a duopoly made up of Democrats and Republicans. And instead, they see themselves, the people, as the ones being shut out of a politics that doesn't care about them and cares more. And again, that's what they'll say. It cares more about the Middle East than it cares about middle America. Now, if your politics, the political divide is vertical, people versus political class, do you understand that if you voted for Trump and you're now disappointed in him, do you understand you're going to go with the other populists on the other side of the spectrum and you'll go with a Mamdani? It doesn't matter. It's on the same side of the divide. You got to get that. This is why the disaffected independent populist who sided in mass with us in 2024 can just as easily defect and move on over to the other side. Because for them, it's the same side. They're just looking for somebody who's going to fight for them and not fight for the Middle East. So the bottom line in this is that Trump and the Republicans have to pivot back to the issues that the disaffected independent populist cares about, and not what Fox News cares about, not what Rupert Murdoch cares about, not what their donors care about, what their disaffected, independent, populist 2024 voters care about. These are kitchen table issues. This is affordability, it's cost of living. They have to focus on healthcare solutions. They're going to bring premiums down. This is where the MAGA movement, by the way, can come together in a wonderful way with the MAHA movement, with Robert Kennedy Jr., because the HHS oversees Obamacare. So this is a perfect opportunity to reinvigorate the near 10 million strong MAHA movement populace. And then this all leads to the third perspective in all of this. So you got your first perspective, which is, don't worry about it. Off your elections always benefit the party that's not in power, versus the second perspective, which is the polar opposite. No, we are actually watching the MAGA coalition unravel in real time. And if the GOP does not get their proverbial dung, using our King James their dung together, they are in for a 2006 style wipeout in the midterms. The third perspective is basically the combination of the two. Okay. Blue states in off-year elections are going to double down on their blueness. States that voted for Kamala are going to double down on their left-wing progressive absurdities. We do not want to blow this totally out of proportion. What we saw in New Jersey, Virginia, New York, California is exactly what we predicted we would see. Not maybe in the margins, but certainly in the outworking. And that is not predictive of what's going to happen in the nation as a whole. It's not. If you compare a Virginia off-year election to what happens in the midterms in terms of Virginia turnout, there is no one-to-one correlation. But at the same time, we do certainly see signs that the Trump coalition is experiencing some very real stress. And we need to proactively and immediately address that and rectify that and reignite the Trump coalition, which is so astonishingly unstoppable. And the good news is that that's exactly how the White House is responding. J.D. Vance tweeted out on Wednesday, the day after the election, quote, "I think it's idiotic to overreact to a couple of elections in blue states, but a few thoughts." So there you go. That's the refractory period, right? That's what he starts with. But that said, Scott Pressler, TPUSA, and a bunch of others have been working hard to register voters. I said it in 2022, and I've said it repeatedly since. Our coalition is lower propensity. And that means we have to do better at turning out voters that we have in the past. And again, just bottom line, what he means by that is that so many of the MAGA voters are disaffected voters. They feel disenfranchised from both parties. You got to let that hit you. We have a coalition with a major block of voters that hate the party they now belong to. You got to let that hit you. The Republicans won with a major block that hates them because they love Trump. Trump has the coalition, Republicans don't. And so what JD is saying is they're not necessarily going to come out and vote if Trump isn't on the ballot. So we have to have an amazing get out the vote infrastructure that we saw, of course, with Cliff Maloney of Pennsylvania Chase, that we've been seeing with Scott Pressler with early vote action, that we're seeing with Turning Point USA that came out in force in Arizona. Arizona was one of the bright spots of what happened on Tuesday. We had a lot of successful victories in Arizona. So that's the first thing he notes. But then let's put that back up. We need to focus. This is number 2. We need to focus on the home front. The president has done a lot that has already paid off in lower interest rates and lower inflation, but we inherited a disaster from Joe Biden, and Rome wasn't built in a day. We're going to keep on working to make a decent life affordable in this country, and that's the metric by which we'll ultimately be judged in 2026 and beyond. Bullseye. All right, so we are going to zero in on those very kitchen table issues that disaffected independent populists care so much about. All right, good. If they have that infrastructure and the issues in place, we're crushing it. He goes on to address some of the infighting, the whole Tucker and Fuentes and Mark Levin and all this, nonsense. And that's exactly as he puts it. The infighting is stupid. I care about my fellow citizens, particularly young Americans, being able to afford a decent life. I care about immigration and our sovereignty, and I care about establishing peace overseas so our resources can be focused at home. If you care about those things too, let's work together, right? Enough of the squabbling. And we could talk, if you want to bring that up in our discussion through the super chats, go right ahead and we can talk about it. But you could see the acknowledgement of both the effects of a refractory period and at the same time, the need to formalize a massive get out the vote campaign for these disaffected, low propensity voters, while at the same time giving them something to vote for. Namely, directly addressing and solving all the domestic issues that they care about. Cost of living affordability, inflation, healthcare premiums. In fact, Trump's top political advisor, James Blair, just came out and said that President Trump will indeed be focusing on affordability going forward. That will be his agenda. He's going to be very focused on prices and cost of living. Now, he can't just say it. It's not a sell job. He's got to do it. People have to be able to feel it in their DNA, like it is morning in America. This feels great. I'm filling up my gas tank and it's, $2 a gallon. I go to the store and dang, the prices that were so high yesterday, wow, they're coming down. I was able to buy 2 of an item rather than a 1. That's what they've got to be. And then healthcare premiums, Bobby Kennedy and Trump coming together, Maha and MAGA, and finding creative solutions to bringing those premiums down. If the GOP does that, they will be just fine for the midterms. Remember, we've got all the fundamentals working in our favor. What we have to understand is that the fundamentals for the GOP remain very strong going into the midterms. They continue to dominate voter registration trends all across the states that register voters by party, all 30 states. They're winning the redistricting wars. They're cleaning and purging the voter rolls. They're deporting, as we just talked about, they're deporting a mass number of illegals, particularly from blue states. And the Supreme Court is indeed poised to finally overturn Section 2 of the VRA, which the Voting Rights Act, which has been exploited by the Democrats to draw literally racially segregated districts. If that finally gets gutted, that would unleash nearly 24 safe Republican seats in the South. So even after Tuesday, Republicans do appear at this point to be in the position of safely winning upwards of 220 seats in the House without having to flip a single swing state. So let's push forward. Let's make sure we dominate both the ideas that animate the midterms and the infrastructure that gets out the vote like never before. And we will be in very, very good shape for 2026. Over to you guys, over to you as Josh, our moderator, assembles your questions, your comments, whatever you like. You, of course, all remember Biden's debate disaster, right? When he blurted out, we finally beat Medicare. And Trump was like, yeah, you beat it to death. See, that's what we need. We need Trump to be very proactive there, which he said he will. But Medicare touches the lives of millions of Americans. But like just about everything the government touches, it's a mess. And mistakes can cost you thousands. Between confusing rules and penalties and thousands of different plans, it's no wonder so many people are spending more than they need to because, well, they're stuck in the wrong plan. So that's why I want to introduce you to a genuinely helpful company called Chapter. Chapter gives you personalized Medicare advice, and they actually work for you. They don't work for the government, not for big insurance. They search every plan available, even those that other agents skip. And by doing this, they save people an average of $1,100 per year and sometimes even more. In fact, Chapter was able to save one couple, Joe and his wife, $3,000 every year. That's a nice vacation to take, huh? Chapter's advice is completely free to my audience. No fees, no pressure, just honest help. So if you're already on Medicare or you're about to be, I can't recommend Chapter enough. Give them a call at 919-727-1903 to make sure your Medicare works for you. Most people wish they had called them so much sooner. It's so easy and they're so great. Again, that's 919-727-1903. All right, Josh, what do we got? What do we got? Lord Voldemort, what do you think about the Supreme Court possibly overturning Trump's tariffs? It seems like all our conservative judges keep stabbing us in the back. No, that's not true. Lord Voldemort just gave you, we've had 30 wins in a row. But that's said. So, yeah, the Supreme Court may indeed strike down Trump's tariffs. Now, they're striking them down based on the fact that he imposed them through what's called the IEEPA. The IEEPA, it stands for International Emergency Economic Powers Act. It was just the fastest, swiftest way he was able to impose tariffs. So SCOTUS is looking rather skeptical over whether this IEEPA allows the president to do that. And if they do strike down, Trump actually has several other alternative options. He can use different statutory authorities that explicitly mention tariffs and the president's use of tariffs. I've actually got a little written here. So there's a section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act that he can use. That's what he used for steel and aluminum tariffs in his first term. You can also have, there's section 122 of the Trade Act, which allows up to about 15% duties for 150 days to address international payments. So if somebody's not paying, so you got trade deficits or whatever, you can impose, the president can impose that. There's also something known as the president's Section 301 authority, so he can pursue tariffs through more traditional mechanisms that have withstood judicial scrutiny in the past, but it's longer. And it goes through an investigative period through different agencies and so forth. And of course, the third option, which is not an option, is you could just go through Congress. But Congress is dysfunctional. As long as you've got the filibuster, nothing's happening. Nothing of note has happened in the Senate since Obamacare, when all is said and done. If it wasn't a reconciliation vote that only required 51 votes, but nothing has happened. When the Democrats had 60 votes and a filibuster-proof majority, they were able to pass Obamacare. That was the last big major bill that they were able to pass as a result of this filibuster. So Trump would clearly pursue, I think, either the first or second option. And he could do that very quickly without much fuss. But obviously he does not want it. He wants another win from the court. So we'll have to see. Bannon had a summary of Tuesday similar to yours, except he also stated that we decide to go all on tariffs but have yet to get results. Will we have time? Yeah, no, I'm absolutely with you. Tariffs have to be shown. Again, it's not you can't talk to disaffected voters. Disaffected voters have to feel and what they felt in 2024 was that Trump was their man. He was their guy. He was their champion. He was a victim of the establishment, and now he's going to absolutely crush the establishment, which to an extent he most certainly has. We have to keep that in mind. Just ask the 100,000 federal employees who are now unemployed, right? He is certainly dismantling the administrative state. Again, I'd love to see Doge coming back. I don't know what happened with that. Gen Z men loved Doge. This is one of the data points that Mark Mitchell has brought up. Right now they just don't see how tariffs are helping them. Now, keep in mind, working class voters like tariffs, but again, they like tariffs and they like kitchen table issues as well as like affordability and healthcare premiums and the like. So he's got to have to show a connection between the two in such a way that people can feel. So that we're waiting on that. There is a big argument to be made that by this time next year, we are going to see it, especially with all the investment that's coming in to the country. But we'll have to see. Sedan, hope liberal women in New York City enjoy their burkas. It is a fascinating contradiction playing out in front of us, it's already being called out in places like Dearborn, Michigan, in Hamtramck, where, well, you mentioned women. I'm thinking particularly LGBT, teamed up with pretty hardcore Islamists who hide behind identity politics. They hide behind, gender inequalities and affordability and all that sort of stuff. Again, exactly the playbook we're seeing with Mamdani. He's just applying the Dearborn playbook to Manhattan when all's said and done. And what's the first thing Hamtramck and Dearborn do after they come to power? You get an entire all Islamic, all Muslim city council. What's the first thing they do? They ban the pride flag. Of course, they're going to do that. Wokeness and Islam do not coexist. They use wokeness as a cloak to get to power, and then they don't give it up. They just amass their demographic. It's a numbers game. So yeah, you're right. It's absolutely absurd. But again, liberals are so anti-American that they're willing to, or the technical term is post-American, that they're willing to coalition with anyone and everyone who is post-American themselves or anti-American themselves. And that includes, ironically, definitely hardcore Islamists. So, yeah, and they're going to pay for it big time. And that's one of my arguments for a new conservative age. Again, by conservative, I don't mean Reagan conservatism. I mean traditionalist. It's becoming more nationalist. It's becoming more populist. It's becoming more traditionalist. And you don't get more traditionalist than Islam. Yeah, Youpie Shoot, thank you for the euros. Tuesday's election was like Joshua's first battle against the city of Ai. They got too sure of themselves and did not rely on God for such a small town. You always have beautiful theological insights, and I think you're absolutely right. Well, we again, if you needed to lose a battle, this was the battle to lose. Get your reconnaissance, get all your intelligence from it, regroup and fight. MSG thoughts of SCOTUS potential ruling on the tariff case. Yeah, we just did that again. If you're asking me, how do I think their rule? I've heard 50-50. I've heard, well, I shouldn't say 50-50. I think most court watchers and legal analysts think, based on the questions that they were asking Trump's lawyer arguing it, who did a brilliant job, by the way. He did as good of a job that you can do to argue for using that IEEA as the mechanism for imposing the tariffs. they're skeptical. They think the court is going to shoot it down. They're going to be like, you can't do that. It was Roberts kind of had an interesting one. Roberts said, look, a tariff is a tax. There's no way around it. It's the government requiring people to pay, and you either tax them or you impose some kind of penalty, some kind of fee on them. But it is a government imposed tax, but it's not on the consumers or the American people. It's on non-Americans. It's on outside. It's international. And he said so. And the president does have ultimate authority over international affairs. So it is a bit of a gray area. But most people think, most analysts think they're going to overturn it. Trump has, again, many other options on the table to keep those tariffs going. But to be honest, the Fox News Republican, the mainstream Republican, would love to see them gone. The tariffs are primarily for the working class. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, what are the chances of Mamdani violates federal law and his naturalization revoked and is deported by Trump? We'll see on that. We'll see. Trump is he tweeted out right after Mamdani was declared the winner, and so it begins. And that was a very cryptic statement that, the more unpopular Mamdani gets politically, when we finds out he cannot even come close, we don't have a socialist system in place. Our Constitution and even New York State Constitution does, New York City's city charter, it doesn't provide for what he wants to do. That's a fundamentally different system. So you would need a national revolution to get it done, like you saw in Venezuela or Cuba. And he's a freaking city mayor. So when he can't fulfill what he promised, again, the same thing is going to happen. All of these disaffected independent populists are going to turn on him very, very quickly because they don't trust anybody. And then I think that's when Trump is probably going to crack down on him. So, but we'll see how. I don't know how. Senator, the filibuster was a creation of Aaron Burr, not the founders, to enable the backers to hold the people's welfare hostage. Awesome. I did not know that. I have no reason to doubt it. But yeah, either way, it's dead. It's dead. And it's just the question of who is going to bury it when all is said and done. Sicrex Core, there was voter fraud. That's what happened. Those elections need to be redone. Yeah, I mean, there was fraud, and we caught it. I did a video on it. What was it? I think yesterday. There was a mayor in Kansas, who's a citizen of Colombia, I believe. I forget. He has a green card, but he's not a citizen. And he was found to have voted in several elections. And he was actually elected mayor of the small, and it was a conservative Kansas town. But if that's happening in a small conservative Kansas town, can you imagine what's happening in our major urban areas and in blue states, where the governors and the mayors deliberately turn a blind eye, or if not encourage illegal voting activity? No, it's clearly happening. But that said, I don't think that exhausts what happened on Tuesday. And I don't think that, we'll see, in the postmortem, but at this point, I think putting our effort in trying to, in trying to basically, re-elect those elections, I think it's wasted time. Yes, and again, all Congress has to do is get rid of that filibuster and then pass all kinds of national legislation that puts in at a national level, even among blue states, very strong election integrity reform. That's all they have to do. That's how you basically, there's the give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. That's puts in a system that basically guarantees just elections. Rock Dog, the most popular song in the tri-state area this week is Escape from New York. It's true. Snake Plissken for mayor or Duke of New York. Yeah, what is it? The real estate agencies in Miami and Southern Florida are reporting that they're already seeing a potential influx of about $100 million in real estate revenue, all coming from New York. It's a disaster already happening. Yeah. Newton, hey, Doc, is Virginia a voter ID state? Thanks. Good question. I don't think it is. We'd have to look it up, though. Squeaks. How's it that the Dems doing in Congress? How is what the Dems are doing in Congress not treason? Illegals above U.S. citizens? Oh, sure. Yeah. It's just, yeah. Good. I mean, again, you can't do anything in Congress because it's so dysfunctional. So, yeah. I mean, if they're trying to get, if they're holding out for healthcare for illegals over and against citizens, yeah, I mean, obviously that's a treasonous act, of course, but that would be fine if you had a functional system, but in a dysfunctional system, it doesn't matter. W. Snow, hey, Doc, what are your thoughts on the guarantee of a Republican form of government? Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution, commonly known as the Guarantee Clause or Republican form of government clause. Good question. I don't know. I've never done a study on it. That sounds fascinating, actually. I'm going to write that down. Let me know what you think and what sources or what resources you use. Article 4, Section 4. I'll have to look in terms of just a guarantee of Republican form of government. Yeah, no, I would love to get your thoughts on it, but I don't know. Robo Guy, I'm tired. I'm sick of all the political BS. Not just that I am because that I'm become more focused on that than probably building up my life. I'm honestly wondering if I should just shut it off for a while so it doesn't poison me more. You know, that's not a bad idea, Robo Guy. I mean, your guy's in power. Trump's in office. We've got the Congress, at least for the next year. So, yeah, if you want to take a couple of months hiatus, go for it. And I love the way you're saying it, building yourself up, building up your life. That's very important. You know, there's 5 areas of life that you always need to be focusing on from time to time. And that's your spiritual life, it's your relational life, it's your physical life, it's your professional life, and it's your financial life. And a well-balanced life is flourishing in all 5 areas. And so if you're not flourishing in one of those areas, focus in on it. It might be your health. It's one of the reasons why I lost the 60 pounds. You know, I realized, you know, I wasn't flourishing in there. I was flourishing spiritually. I was flourishing professionally. My subs were going up, all this good stuff. But I realized, and relationally, things were going very well. But I realized physically I was just a mess. So I started taking supplements, I started exercising, started eating right, work with PhD Weight Loss. I'll give them a free plug here. And they helped me lose 60 pounds. And then I gained back another 30, and then they helped me lose that. So they're awesome. So there you go. That's what I would do. See what one area in your life you can focus on, and you will feel very, very good about it. And then get back into the swing of things. We're here to fight for you. Don't you worry. We're a team. Sandiford, hopefully this is not the coalition breaking down, but a result of the common practice of voting for one party at home, but the other party nationally. It could be. We didn't see anything out of the ordinary big picture. 4 states that voted for Kamala in 2024 continued to double down on their absurdities. New York got more absurd. Virginia and New Jersey got more absurd. California got more absurd. So they doubled down on their absurdities. And then Arizona and Texas doubled down on redness. Arizona got rid of that stupid Republican for Kamala idiot on one of those committees or whatever. They voted her out. They kicked her butt out of there. And then Texas voted overwhelmingly requiring proof of citizenship for when you vote, while Maine, deep blue Maine, voted down voter ID requirements, which was some of the most nationally And it's an 80-20 issue. So, right, those don't necessarily translate to the nationwide political dynamics. New Jersey, Virginia voted way to the left of the rest of the country in 2024 by at least 5 points. And so we don't have to pay attention to that. What we do have to pay attention to is the demographic that did not show up for the Republicans, but did show up for the Democrats: working class, Latinos, and Gen Z under 30. That's ominous. And the ominousness of it we saw in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is supposed to be going red. It's supposed to be the Ohio it's supposed to be the new Ohio. And what we saw was blue Pennsylvania rearing its ugly head again. So Erie and Northampton counties, Lehigh, that all went red, that all went MAGA in 2024, went blue and solid blue. Georgia, same thing. We even saw it in Mississippi. Regions that should have been red went blue. So that is very concerning. We have to keep that in mind. So it does appear that we have data to back up that the disaffected independent populist started to lose confidence in President Trump shortly after the Iran nuclear facility bombing. They were not impressed by Fox. They don't watch Fox News. They were not impressed with it. As far as they were concerned, ever since then, they feel like Trump has not been taking their concerns seriously, and he's been taking his donors' concerns seriously. And they're willing to come back, but a lot of damage has been done, and we got to get busy winning them back. Again, because they don't see a left-right divide, they see people versus political class. And as they get disappointed in Democrats, they're going to come back over to us. No problem. But we got to be proactive in that. Robo Guy, I'm wondering about a friend of mine. He's around 30. He's never had a relationship, but he still wants one. Is it possible for one to find love if they never had it at an earlier point? Oh, my. I don't know. I don't know what am I, Dr. Phil? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't. Yes, I have family members. Turley's well, you said he's never had a relationship but wants one. But I was going to say Turley's tend to be. I wasn't. I got married in my 20s, but my family tends to be late. The men tend to be late. They tend to get married in their 30s. But I'm sure they had relationships prior to the one they married. So yeah, good question. Yeah, I know a couple of people who just really never had relationships, but then got married in their 40s, late 40s. So yeah, so it's possible, sure. But I don't know anything more than that. Sedan de Vilbert, Thune gotta go. Yeah, well, Thune represents the Romney-Ryan wing of the Republican Party that is still very much in power in the Republican apparatus. And my view is you're just going to have to work around them. You cannot work with them at this point. What we can do is we can fire the advisor class that's still Romney-Ryan, overwhelmingly Romney-Ryan. They still run. And again, I forget who was saying this. Was it Bannon? They're still running elections like it's 1991. I mean, they're still running elections like it's 2012. They think the populist is bad news. They think the populist is going to turn voters off, when in point of fact, the data shows it's the exact opposite. It's only the populist that animates the disaffected independent voter. So they've just got to be expunged from the apparatus of the party. And something's going on at the RNC. I don't know what, but I heard that Mike Whatley had stepped down. He's going to be running for Senate in North Carolina. And to my knowledge, they have an interim in there, and they don't know what the hell they're doing. So I mean, again, the structural GOP, the GOP apparatus has to be radically overhauled. And we've got to have TPUSA. We've got to have, early vote action. We got to have Pennsylvania Chase. We've got to have precisely the infrastructure that JD Vance said they are going to implement. But that means getting rid of the advisor class that have destroyed they don't even know how to win elections anymore, but they don't care. They still get paid. So we need a new advisor class, and we've got to learn to tell these donors to stick it. He's got a war chest of over $1 billion already. He knows who he can get money from, and I think he can take this opportunity, the shutdown, to actually do stuff like that, like he was doing with the military, and get all of these super rich guys to come in and start donating money to help people out, especially who are losing on SNAP benefits and so forth. Love USA. This is because people are too stupid. None of these is because of Trump. It's because Democrats shut down the government intentionally to create all this havoc, and people still don't know who to blame. No, I hear you, Love USA. I hear you. I mean, that may, in fact, absolutely be the case. In reality, that may be what's happening, as it were, but people's perception are very different. Now, you could say they're too stupid. That you got to be careful with that, because then you're just getting frustrated with the voter. And what you have to do is, I think you have to align yourself with the sentiment of the voter. And the sentiment of the voter is legit. Things are too expensive. Remember, price is a lagging indicator. So if you bring the price of energy down, which Trump has done significantly, right? I think it's $60 a barrel right now or something like that. It's been up 120. It's been double that. It's gas prices are at the lowest level in 4 years. And yet consumer prices at the grocery store and at restaurants and so forth have remained relatively stable over since the massive inflationary jump. Prices are lagging indicators, and they have yet to catch up with the energy costs going down. I don't know what they're waiting for, but Trump needs to be very proactive and campaign again. As long as the disaffected, disenfranchised voter sees Trump taking leadership, they're going to go with him. They're going to go with him on it. Kasparius, I have been saying for the past year now, we should treat every upcoming election as a beat the steal. We should treat every upcoming election as if we have to get out huge vote numbers or lose. Yes, absolutely. You're right, Kasparius. And in many ways, we did do that. Jack got 100,000 more votes than the Democrat got back in 2021. So we did it. So if the Democrats had just performed the same they performed in 2021, we would have beaten them by 100,000 votes. It would have been a very, very impressive win. We'd have beaten them by three points. The problem is that Mikey Sherrill got 400,000 more votes. So, and why? Because they were able to bring out both their Democrat base, and left-leaning independents who have been chomping at the bit to vote for the last 12 months, against, to do their no kings vote. Whereas Republicans came out en masse more than they even came out in 2021, but they didn't have their right-leaning independents show up because they're disaffected populists who just have tuned out. They just feel like nobody gives a shit about them, or some of them even defected over to the Democrat. Again, Mikey Sherrill won Gen Z men, if I recall, by 14 points. This is the demographic that Trump won by 10. So we have to be, again, in a populist mood. Democrats and Republicans are very fluid, right? Left and right is very fluid because they don't see a divide there because they don't like either party. They only see people versus political class, the oligarchy, right? The aristocracy. And that doesn't care about them and is ruling according to their own values, interests, and concerns that and then the values, interests, concerns of the people they dismiss. So if you're willing to fight that permanent political class, they'll be on your side. They don't really care your policies. They want you to take down the establishment. Brian Edgett, my good friend, do you think that the Trump administration will turn its attention to domestic affairs significantly enough to hold the Senate and House? And why do you think as you do? Yeah, that's a good question. So yes, I do at this point. I have no reason to, because they're making all the right moves, at least rhetorically. It's early yet, but in making all the right moves rhetorically, like JD Vance's tweet that came out and said, "Yep, we're going to focus on domestic issues." Trump's number one advisor, his latest comment, "Yep, he's going to focus entirely on domestic issues." His pushing of the Senate Republicans is just the start. He'll keep pushing them as long as this shutdown continues, certainly, because that'll ratchet up the pressure for them to do it, to get rid of the Senate filibuster. So these are all clear signs that he is focusing now on kitchen table issues. Is it enough to hold the Senate and the House? If he does that, yes, I think so. Yeah. The Senate, just the numbers aren't there. I mean, there's just more red states than blue states. So what we would need to see is have evidence that what happened in blue states would translate over to red states. We could lose a seat in North Carolina because Tillis is not isn't running again, but Mike Whatley's running there. Mike Whatley's actually very popular in North Carolina. We could pick up a seat in New Hampshire with the Sununu now running there, and it's where was the other place, if I recall? Michigan. I thought we had a good prospect. Oh, and Georgia. Georgia. It looks like we may have a very good prospect in Georgia. But that said, regardless, we could lose 2 or 3 seats, but we're the ones in power in the White House. We have the vice president. And so it would have to be a 2006 like blowout for it. Because remember, even in 2018, when we lost 40 seats in the House, we still gained 2 seats in the Senate. It's just the demographics for red states favor the candidates for on the right. It's just, you would have to have a total breakdown in the red state, blue state demographic makeup. So that's why I think we'll hold the Senate. And I think we'll hold the House if it's just simply structural from the vantage point of us winning the redistricting wars, because we just have more seats than, blue can go up, Virginia can go, Illinois can go, California can go. And Harmeet Dillon, as I understand it, is actually going to try to tie that up as the strategies. She's going to be tying that up in the courts past 2026. So we'll see how that works, which would be very interesting. I'll like to see that. That's using some political power to our advantage, which I do approve of. But if the VRA goes, Section 2, the Voting Rights Act, gets struck down, which it looks like it's going to, Politico estimate that's 19 seats in all solid red states. And then, of course, Florida's joining the redistricting wars. So altogether, it looks like we're going to be picking up upwards of 30, 35 seats. And then even if you adjust it for like the 15 or so that that blue states could still muster, that's still a 220. Now, it's still 20 extra seats that we're getting. And so we can even lose a few of our seats. We're at 20, 21 right now. Cook Political Report has us safe at 2012. That was, we were safe at 2017. It's now 2012 since Prop 50 passed. So it's just a numbers game in the end. And again, these are solid, right? Even in Virginia, where Trump, in districts where Trump won by less than 3, they flipped. But in districts in Virginia where Trump won by more than 3, they were safe. They were solid. So if that translates to red states, which it generally does, it's Trump, and these are districts where Trump gets more than 3 points. It's just going to be harder. I just think it's going to be a hard sell. That said, we have to take very seriously what we're seeing with the three major groups of the fourfold Obama coalition that came over to our side in 2024 and gave us such a massive win. We want that massive win again and again and again, which means we have to focus on those domestic issues. So I see Trump making the pivot rhetorically. He's going to have to make the pivot policy-wise and so forth, and just make it as number one. It's very much like what he did, when he visited East Palestine. I mean, he crushed it there. I mean, he just absolutely, the optics for Biden were so bad. He looked so little. Heck, he was probably snoozing and sleeping during that. But Trump went out there. He brought a whole truckload of food using his own money. If he was doing stuff like that right now during this shutdown, I don't think we would have seen. Again, I still think they would have both won because of the refractory period. Mikey Sherrill and Spamberger in Virginia, I think they would have both won. I think Prop 50 would still pass. Obviously, Mamdani would still have Hugo Chavez, but not at the margins. And I don't think we would have seen. I think many of those districts that voted for Trump by less than 3 would have stayed. We would have at least seen a diversity, that we would have seen maybe half of them went to the Democrats, but the other half stayed strong. And then we may have seen Erie and County and Northampton and Lehigh in Pennsylvania stay relatively red. Again, maybe a little blue, not like what we saw. So that's all. The bottom line is, I think if Trump is very proactive in focusing on kitchen table issues, we'll be okay. Plus, we have all the structural advantages with the redistricting, both in terms of state initiatives as well as the possible Supreme Court overturning, and then just the red state demographics favoring a Senate majority for the Republicans. So there you go. That's basically the way I'm thinking of it. Simple logic, just going to say independent populists are very squishy and easy to get back to your side. So long as Trump can get some kind of economic relief that's visible by next year, we'll be fine. I think you're right. And I love your tag name there. I think you're right. I think it's very simple logic there. Again, it's in a vertical divide. People are very fluid. They can go left to right very easily. Again, we've got 9% of Mamdani's voters voted for Trump. 9% of Mamdani's vote. There is a Trump Mamdani voter. Okay. A lot of the voters, the working class Latino and Gen Z men voters for Spamberger and Sherrill voted Trump. You gotta get that. So they can go back and forth because they don't see a divider between left and right. They hate both the Democrats and the Republicans equally. They see them as two parties that represented a duopoly, a uniparty, ultimately, of donors. And so they can go back and forth. They're very left-right fluid. So you're right. It works the other way. If they're very left-right fluid, no problem. They can come right back to Trump. No problem at all. And we saw that. We saw that in 2022. Number of voters who had voted Democrat in the midterms that kind of minimized Republican wins voted Trump in 2024. Many who voted Democrat in 2018 came back and voted Trump in 2020, where he came within 40,000 votes of winning re-election. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Secession now. Trump failed to drain the swamp. Virginia was supposed to be gutted. Every federal agency was supposed to be moved out of Washington, D.C. They didn't even move the FBI headquarters. I can't wait until Nick Fuentes starts his own America First party. Yeah. I mean, that is a very big sentiment right now. What you're saying, secession now, is being felt to the bones by a lot of people. There's no way around it. Again, you can't. There's an old saying: you can't argue with a song. You can't argue with a song. A song just has its own reality. And no amount of argument is going to change that reality. And if the perception is that Trump is not delivering on the dismantling of the administrative state and the deep state as he promised. You're going to go elsewhere because you don't have any loyalty to the parties by any stretch of the imagination. And you're saying it right there. Can't wait till Nick Fuentes starts his own party. So no, you're voicing the frustration of millions of people out there. No question about it. So that's what Trump is going. Look, if we haven't had the perv walks, we haven't had one. I mean, freaking Comey gets indicted and he didn't have a perp walk. Perp. I said perv walk. Probably that too, but perp walks. We haven't had that. We haven't had the release of the Epstein files. We haven't had the release of even, frankly, nobody knows what Operation Crossfire Hurricane is. I use that term. I have to define it because nobody knows what it is. Right? It was the conspiracy basically to thwart a presidency as well as try to interrupt the democratic integrity of an election, presidential election. So all of that's got to come out. And it's just not. And so until he does, secession, guys like Secession Now are going to have, they're out there. You can't argue with a song. You can't argue with something that basically awakens its own reality. You can't. Arguments mean nothing. So good point, Secession Now. Raven Writing Desk. I feel like we need to come together. It should be us versus the problems, not us fighting each other while the problems are dancing around untouched. Absolutely. And that was JD Vance's tweet that he sent out. It's like, all right, look, we are focusing when in coalitions are always very, very fragile and always very tenuous. And the number one rule of a coalition is you cannot focus on one thing to the benefit of one side of your coalition, but to the disadvantage of everyone else in your coalition. So if you got 4 or 5, coalition. I mean, the MAGA coalition is complex, right? So I shouldn't even call them MAGA. It is the Trump coalition. Remember, the Republicans don't have a coalition. Trump does. So you got the MAGA coalition, which is what we've been talking about, the working class voters, Latinos, Gen X. They are specific to Trump, not to the Republicans. You got the MAHA coalition. That's about 10 million disaffected Democrats, anti-vaxxers, Fauci skeptics, and the like. You've got your tens of millions of Christian conservatives, social conservatives. You've got the new tech right that Elon Musk represents, so Silicon Valley warring against woke because they see the woke beginning to try to take them down as well. And you've got the mainstream Fox News Republican. And the problem is, I think, since the bombing of Iran, the Fox News Republican has been the one that the administration has been appealing to with all of their appearances, every night on Hannity or Levin or, well, he's only up on Saturday nights or so, but you get the point. I mean, with the Pam Bondis, as long as Fox News Republicans are happy, we're happy. And what they're finding out is that don't work. Where's Bobby Kennedy been of late? Because Maha loves him, and every time he talks, he speaks on their behalf. Right. The working class loves the tariffs, but they haven't seen how that translates to lowering their prices for groceries. Right. Maha is still waiting, and many are still waiting for the perp walks. They're waiting for the deep state to be revealed and exposed for everyone to see. And so Trump has to balance out all of these, I would argue, mutually reinforcing interests, but he can only do that if he's not focusing on one to the detriment of the others. And it sounds to me like he's going to do that. So this, to me, this is what Tucker and Nick Fuentes was mentioned earlier. This is what they're doing. They're basically coming out and calling that out, that they do not understand why mainstream Republicans in the House and the Senate give so much inordinate attention to the Middle East, and particularly Israel. Even though no other faction outside of the Fox News faction, no other faction in the Trump movement wants anything to do with that. And it doesn't matter even if that reluctance, like I was saying to the earlier comment, it doesn't matter if that reluctance to support Middle East policy or to be swooned in Ben Shapiro's or Mark Levin's rhetoric. It doesn't matter if that's right or wrong. It just is. You can't argue with a song. And Fuentes and Tucker, they're giving voice to that opposition. Again, right or wrong. And how they're doing it, how they're doing it is right or wrong, it's irrelevant. There is this sentiment that what we voted for, we're not getting. That's why I did this video. I wanted to give everyone a sense of, all right, what's been accomplished so far? It's pretty impressive. It should make everyone, every faction, as it were, the Trump coalition, very, very, very happy. Yes, no, the administrative state is being dismantled. Yes, the deep state is getting hit, and it's been getting hit hard. But the exact promises of breaking up the agencies and sending them out, and ripping apart the FBI and bringing out the Epstein files and putting Fauci and ankle cuffs and all this sort of stuff, that has and then bringing down those prices outside of eggs are down 90%, but bringing down those prices, fixing the healthcare premiums and so forth, that has yet to happen. The average Joe has yet to feel that. And until they feel that, like I said, you can't argue with a song. And that's what Trump has to focus on. If he does, we'll be fine. I think we'll be just fine for that. I mean, we'll know as the closer we get to the midterms, but we should be fine. Love USA, I will be with Trump and MAGA forever because only smart people know that Trump has been doing everything right for Americans, even though a lot of them are long-term. But if next two presidents continue it, is there another one after that? Yeah, in other words, it should be permanent, or so we'll be better. We'll be better for it. So JD as number 48, and then maybe a Marco Rubio or Pete Hegseth or something. Yeah, we got a good bench, that's for sure. So yeah, I'm with you. Love USA. I'll always be Trump and MAGA forever. I mean, it's nationalism, populism, traditionalism. It is the wave of the future. That's why I'm not too afraid of the leftist populism, because what we're finding in Europe is rightist populism will always trump, no pun intended, leftist populism, because the populist right are able to pivot to the left on economics to appease the working class, and at the same time pivot right on culture in a way that the populist left can't. As long, and this is Bill Maher's criticism. This is Piers Morgan's criticism. This is criticism as Scott Adams. You can go on and on and on. As long as the left doubles down on wokeness, they are going to ultimately destroy themselves, because wokeness splits the left and unites the right. So if the left is only economic populism and nothing more, it has a built-in futility to it. Whereas the political balance today, because of this vertical divide, is you pivot left on economics. So you have a very proactive government that helps the little guy, just like FDR would. And you pivot right on culture, and you push back against all the wokeness. If you only do one, either on the political left or populist left, populist right, if you only do one, you're shot. That's what Winsome Sears thought. She could just keep pushing the transgender issue and she'll win. Yeah, it's a winning issue. Certainly Glenn Youngkin won with it, but you got to address the economic populism, and she did not. She was an anti-Trumper. And that did not help her at all. And that's why Bannon thinks more or less Glenn Youngkin destroyed the Republican Party for a generation, because he wouldn't allow for any kind of primary. BW, what happens if Trump tariffs go down? Doesn't that end our agenda? And would that be a bellwether for the race districts voting rights ruling? No. They don't have anything to do with each other. It's just the VRA and the tariff issue are just very, very different issues. No, like I said earlier, that Trump has a number of options. He could still use tariffs. He's got, I mentioned, it's called Section 232, the Trade Expansion Act. That allows, he used that for tariffs with steel and aluminum. He's got Section 122 of the Trade Act that allows him to put automatically 15% duties for 150 days, half a year, to address international, shall we say, inequities in trade, trade deficits and the like. There's the presidential Section 301 authority, where that's been held up by the courts, where he can pursue tariffs through, again, through more traditional vetting mechanisms through the different agencies and the like. So he's got a lot of options. I wouldn't worry about it. It just would suck because he's got sort of an unblemished winning record. And that would, right after these, and I don't know when they would announce, probably soon, because it's dealing with an economic issue and an international issue. But that would just suck. It's just, again, another little blow there for him, and he can just show that there are other options available to him. LM 907, and thank you guys, all of you, for these super chats. Very, very appreciated. Thank you so much for supporting us. So, do you know what's happening with Trump and the OMBRV attempt to decrease federal workers, RAF, and programs? Trump should win court case. Any chance they can retroactively cut programs or do RIFs if government opens before winning the case? That's a good question. I do not know. I mean, yeah. I mean, so reduction force measures. Yeah, I mean, certainly, as I understand, Russell Vogt can implement them. As a matter of fact, I would like to see him, increase it tenfold after what Northern Virginia did. Screw them. Again, you want to make our lives bitter? No problem. Here you go. Here's a pink slip. Yeah, no, I think I just don't see. I mean, they've already been doing it. I think didn't Russell Vogt send out 4,000 more pink slips since the shutdown started? So I think they could do it. Yeah, no, I think I don't know if he can that's I'm tied up on, whether he can retroactively cut programs even before he wins his case to do it. I think so. I mean, again, what Congress is doing is saying the president has Article 2 powers, and Article 2 powers can be reined in either through Article 1 power. No, I'm sorry. Article 2 powers cannot be reined in. If you want certain things to happen that go against his use of executive power, then you have two avenues. You can have the courts, the Supreme Court, stepping in to say that's unconstitutional. That's not covered by Article 2. Hence the tariff issue. Or you can pass legislation in a now very dysfunctional government that's held up right now, a roadblock by the filibuster. But you can't have agencies, unelected bureaucratic agencies, overstepping the president. You can't do that anymore. That's why Jack Smith's case against Trump at Mar-a-Lago would have gone nowhere with the Supreme Court. Supreme Court would have, at least the 6-3 would have overturned that, because unelected deep state bureaucrats do not have ultimate authority over over classification. Classified documents are ultimately classified or non-classified by the president. That's part of his Article 2 power. So anyway, I just think when it comes to firing, when it comes to reduction force measures, if it's under the executive branch, Trump can do it. The OMB can do it. Baked turkeys, that just happened to a mayor for being an illegal. Yeah. I did a video on it yesterday. It was very fascinating, very interesting. BW, why doesn't Trump put the filibuster in the law? No, the president does not have any power over the filibuster. That is Article 1. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, why can't Congress require voter ID in all federal elections in all 50 states? President, Senate, House. Yeah, in all 50 states, they can. They just have to get past the filibuster, and the Democrats won't let them. So you got to get rid of the filibuster, right? BW, Osgiliath is overrun, Dr. Steve. I feel like Gondor fighting Saruman and Sauron. Trump could carve out filibuster and then put it in law once done. Oh, so you think he can? That's interesting. Well, put it in law once it's done. Yes, he has to sign on it. Yes, it could be part of an overall bill. Yeah, but it's got to be done by the Senate. The president has no control over the filibuster itself. That's Article 1. Jeff Dickinson, can't they just recall Mamdani with enough signatures like they did with Gray Davis back in the day? Sure can, as I understand it. I don't know if New York City has a particular provision. I mean, in terms of the amount of signatures they need and so forth. But Mamdani is a design. Again, Mamdani split the vote. That's what we have to understand. Mamdani did not get an 80-20 vote. He did not win with 80%. Okay, this was not an overwhelming victory in one of the most Democrat cities in the country. He got 50, more or less, a little over 50% of the vote, and Cuomo and Sliwa split the rest. It was primarily Cuomo in the 30s and Sliwa. I don't even think he broke double digits. I think Sliwa was 9% or so. And that's the woke pattern. Wokeness splits the left and unites the right. The right votes entirely against any woke issue, whereas the left splits over it down the middle. And so, again, Mamdani is already a divisive figure. There's just no way around that. So we'll see. We'll see what happens, because if you can get the Cuomo-Sliwa wing to put together a recall petition, again, I don't know the specifics of New York City, but if you could, and he disappoints enough of the disaffected, disenfranchised voters that voted for him, like the Gen Z men or the Latinos, and even some of the working class, though most working class voted Cuomo. I think no problem. I think they can do it. Ozark Ghost Hunter. How can Sharia law legally be allowed in the United States? It's hard. Again, you might be able to do it at local levels, and just kind of the way you couch it. You're going to have to put it in secular terms. You're going to have to put it in civil rights terms. You have to put it in some kind of fancy way. But no, Sharia law in of itself obviously is not constitution. That there are constitutional theocracies. That's actually the fastest growing form of government in the world right now, in this new civilizationalist world we're living in. But I don't know how it would be done under Supreme Court scrutiny here. Franz, will the conservative brain trust recognize that the low propensity voter and the Epstein voter are the same thing, same person? They have to. If they want to win, they have to. The current brain trust is way too Romney-Ryan. If you're talking about the apparatus, the actual Republican corporation, the structure, because Republicans and Democrats are corporations. So when you're talking about the donor class, the advisor class, the strategists, I mean, they're basically Ryan Rove. Okay, Ryan Rove is basically who still typically runs the Republican Party. Trump is going to have to crack down and clean out the party, the apparatus. He's going to have to put MAGA in through and through. And until he does, we're always going to be a little bit at a disadvantage in terms of the apparatus. Now, 2024 proved we can overcome that. As long as we've got the issues that animate the disaffected independent populace, we can bring them in, and there's more of them than left-leaning independents. That's what I mean. We're an unstoppable force. We are Obama's coalition. But it's a tenuous coalition, and you're doing exactly the same thing. The low prop voter who just feels like, why bother? Why vote? Why take out? Why? Who cares? It's all the same. It doesn't matter who I put in. It's all the same policies because it's the same effing aristocratic donors that get all of their issues voted on their behalf. And nobody cares about me. They care about the Middle East, but they don't care about Middle America. If that lack of enthusiasm is reversed, it's very hard to overcome it. It's very strong, very powerful. So even a Romney, Ryan, Rove, Republican political infrastructure won't screw that up. But right now, as we speak, the Republican establishment, the Republican network of donors and strategists and advisors hate populists. You just got to get that. And they have to be purged from the party. And that's Trump. Only Trump can ultimately do that. They have to be purged from the party. He has to go down a list with trusted people, Bannon, whoever, I don't care. He's got to go down the list, and then they got to find, all right, he's out, she's out. They got to get rid of the Republican apparatus, and he's in, she's in, he's in, and on and on and on. And you've got to restructure and make MAGA fully populist, because we are not a horizontal divide anymore like we were in 1992 or in 2012 for that matter. We are a vertical divide. And until the Republican Party gets that, they're going to, as a party, they're going to say, because that vertical divide only works in their favor when Trump's on the top of the ticket. So, yeah, great point, Franz. BG, in 1 year, Trump alienated white male voters under 40, and they aren't coming back. That includes bullshit, BG. Don't do that. You're just go doom somewhere else. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. So again, if you were thinking of a horizontal divide and then there was this massive barrier in between the two and they defected over to the left, sure. Okay, but it's vertical, so they can swing back and forth easily. Bullshit. I'm calling your bullshit, dude. Take your black cat that you have there and go walk under a ladder. Ozark Ghost Hunter. One more thing, Mamdani used Takia to get elected. He's going to keep using it against the American people. I'd have to look up Takia. I don't know what that is. So BW, how is he going to end the shutdown with the filibuster? Seems impossible, and it's killing us. Yeah, this is, for me, what I thought. This is the opportunity that Trump would be craving for. So up to this point, he and Russ Vought have been using his opportunity to basically dismantle government. So government is more or less unrecognizable when government gets back into power. He has to instead, I think, use it. Well, he can let Russell Vought do whatever he wants in that. So it's not an either or. He has to use this like he did with East Palestine, and how we stop traveling the effing world and start visiting districts and counties that are hurting. And then whole press conferences says, these are the people the Democrats are holding hostage. That's, put them behind you and say, these are the people, their SNAP benefits are gone. So I'm coming in here today, and I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars to give to them and take care of them until the Democrats stop this. And then, you do the same thing with healthcare premiums, and you do the same thing with just like what he did with military families. You go out, you raise money, you meet with them, you do press conferences, and you push the Democrat. You force the Democrats on the defense. That's what I think he needs to do. Love USA. Trump wants to end the filibuster, and he's a fighter, but Republicans are rhinos, and they're afraid of political consequences of ending it. If filibuster ended, Republicans can open government with simple majority. Yeah, no, and every day this drags on, Republicans getting rid of the filibuster will make them look better. If Trump does this rightly, if Trump says, look, I'm watching people hurting and everything, and then finally Thune gets up and says, you know what, we're not going to stand for this anymore. We're not going to allow the Democrats to hold the people's SNAP benefits and their healthcare premiums hostage anymore. We're just not going to allow that anymore. So we're going to open up the government. We're going to take extreme measures to do it because the Democrats are so extreme. That's what they got to do. If they can do that over the next couple of weeks, I think they're going to win a lot of voters back, to be honest with you. I'm wondering the Democrats, Robo Guy, will just shut down the government every election from now on and get the edge. Of course, that's why the Republicans cannot buckle on this, because then Democrats will get anything and everything they want. Again, we just have to remember it wasn't so much the Democrats and this government shutdown. That's very important. What we have to remember is it was like I said, sort of the putting stress on the Republican coalition, with Trump putting so much emphasis on a Middle Eastern international policy, and them yet feeling that he has he's taking on the special interests that have turned the country away from what benefits them, the disaffected independent populists, as we're calling them. Jen, the filibuster was a tool back then, but it's now being used as a weapon to hurt the American people, all because Trump bad. It's an exploited system that needs to go. If we don't do it, they will. I agree with you 1,000%. The filibuster is dead. It's just who's going to bury it. Might as well be us. Cody Skanes, if the Democrats keep suing Trump, pretty soon they won't be hardly able to anymore, because there will be a SCOTUS decision no lower court can get around overturn. Lawsuits will only work for so long. I agree with you 1,000%. Lawsuits are not the long game; they're the short game. And in point of fact, all lawsuits seem to be doing in the end is just amassing more power for Trump. Exactly. Nilok APB. Hey, Dr. Steve, I'm still trying to arrange an interview. Oh, yes, for the Alberta Prosperity Project. Is there a specific email to contact, or should I join the Patriots Club for? Oh, you could always join the Patriots Club. Rally was huge. Yeah. Hey, Josh, can you send me the email? Is it like support@turleytalks.com, where he can, where Nilok can, over at the Alberta Prosperity Project. Josh, he'll send it to me in a second, and I will forward it to you on air. I'll do that on air. Angry Turtle, I've supported Trump since 2015, but no more. As long as we have an Operation Paperclip mentality and are willing to make deals with evil, God will never bless this country. Well, you have to explain what you mean by that, Angry Turtle. I'm not sure what you mean. What deals are we making with evil such that God will never bless the country? You have to let me know on that. But again, yeah. I don't think people were that far gone away from Trump. So I don't see evidence of that. But Mop Top. The issue seems to be forgotten. Do you think there will be a federal law to keep men out of women's spaces? It has to be federal. The states can't be trusted. This affects all women and girls. Good question. I don't know the answer about that on that. But yes, I know Trump definitely wants. Yeah, he's already done something like that with college education and universities, requiring all universities who are getting federal funds to comply. The hard part with that is, again, you do have some federalism here, and state governments do still have the right to blue states want to be absurd. They have the right to do that. Just don't bring that absurdity in our backyard, kind of thing. So it may fall under more of a federalist structure that the Constitution just does not give the president the right to make a sweeping law like that. Marcus Holiday, I feel like some people that preach America first don't understand that sometimes we have to take care of issues outside of the United States, like Iran. That's part of the responsibility we have as being the superpower of the world. Yeah, I hear you, Marcus. I just think that's 1991 thinking. It's 2001. Oh, and it is. It's support, by the way, for our APP friend, support@turleytalks.com. Yeah, I just think that's outdated. We're not the only superpower. We're not the only superpower. China is a superpower. Russia is a superpower. We're not the only superpower. So we live in a multipolar world where there are multiple superpowers that are going to defend their hegemony, their regional hegemony. That's exactly what's happened. That's certainly the way John Mearsheimer and a number of others argue. What's happening with Ukraine right now is NATO tripped set off the tripwire of regional hegemony. Putin has warned for 22 years. You do not touch Ukraine. You do not touch Ukraine. You don't touch Belarus, and you don't touch Ukraine. We touched Ukraine. We did. And with the war in the Donbass in 2014 and the civil war, we started arming them. We started arming Ukraine because we saw that as a proxy to push back against the Russian influence in the Donbass region with Lugansk and Donetsk and so on. And as far as Putin was concerned, as we were arming them to the Ukraine to the teeth and giving them weapons and intelligence and all that sort of stuff, they said, you've just point of fact made them a NATO country, a de facto NATO country. That's it. We're done. We're going to take this eastern Ukraine region and defend our hegemony. You do whatever the hell you want with the broken western side, but we're taking eastern and Belarus too. More or less, Belarus is just more or less a de facto part of Russia. Sorry, Belarusians, if you don't like that. I mean, Lukashenko and Putin are pretty tight. So anyway, bottom line is we don't think that we could continue to think that way, but that's not the world we live in. But at a more specific issue of what you're saying, yes, I know. Yes, we do have to deal with international issues. We do have to deal with that. But you can't argue with the song. And you have to ask yourself the question, is Iran worth destroying MAGA? Because that's the concern, that Iran destroyed MAGA. If the answer is no, then you're going to have to figure out how to take out Iran and hold MAGA together. And thus far, we have not figured that out. Maverick, Top Gun marketing on Fox and long soliloquies from Mark Levin have not been able to hold MAGA together, at least on Tuesday, at least this past Tuesday. So that's the concern. And that's just the political reality of it. Was taking out Iran's nuclear facility worth destroying MAGA? Worth empowering Democrats? You have to ask yourself, this is politics. Politics is about power. Politics is not about right and wrong. For the love of heaven and earth, you've got to get that. Politics is not about right and wrong. Politics is the power to implement right. Politics is power. Politics is a mechanism. It's a dynamism. So when you're analyzing politics, you can shove, I'm not saying this to you, Marcus, but you can shove your moral high grounds up your arse. I'm sorry, because all the ideology in the world means nothing if you don't have the power to implement it. Nothing. Politics is power. And if you're engaging in a political act that is going to jeopardize the means by which you achieve power, you are a failure politically. I don't care how morally right you were. Politically, you were a failure. So that's what you got to get. Politics is about power. You could go all the way back to the ancient Greek philosophers on that. Politics is about power. And what happened with Iran appears to have objectively disrupted the base for our power. And was it worth it if we end up losing the midterms and the presidency in 2028? Was it worth it? For me, no effing way. Not even close. Not even kind of. No effing way. So there you go. That's my Mark Levin passionate soliloquy. Lester Gordon, could the Republicans get rid of the filibuster and then write it back into law? Good question. Well, no. I mean, well, maybe. Good question. I don't know the answer to that. I'm assuming they could. Or they can temporarily suspend it or something like that. Yeah. Digimeister, isn't the truth that Trump seems to have moved his focus everywhere but America, working on his legacy? Isn't the truth that Trump seems to have moved his focus everywhere but America, moved his focus, working on his legacy? I don't understand the question. Is he more focused on his legacy? Is that what you're saying? Maybe. Either way, it's foolish. It's dumb. You can't do it. Politically, it doesn't work. James, good morning, Dr. Turley. Follow you since 2016 from Australia, from down under. God bless you, my friend. Woke up at 4:30 a.m. Couldn't get back to sleep. My dog and cup of tea. It's all good. God bless you and all our American brothers and sisters. Go Trump. God bless you, James. That's so awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that. From I've never been to Australia, and I would love to. My wife grew up in Japan, so I've been in that hemisphere, as it were, but I've never made it all the way down there, and I'd love to at some point. Love to visit Australia. Yeah, you guys got to get your populist politics up to speed, but you will at some point. But absolutely awesome stuff. Thanks, James. You've made my day. That's really awesome. Thank you. God bless, man. Samsung. The Republicans don't need to worry about ending the filibuster if they require voter ID in all 50 states. The Democrats will never be voting in power on a national level for the next 100 years. And that's true. That's true. I agree with you. I mean, again, in the end, it makes sense. Democrats really don't have any viable path to the Senate for the next 10 years, unless the Republicans really screw up, which they could. Hopefully with Trump, they won't. But they don't have a viable path. They're not going to get it into it. So let's just do it and pass all this legislation. Again, one of the arguments are the Republicans don't want it because they don't want MAGA. Republicans are still Romney Ryan, the Republican establishment. So that's what I mean. Trump has got a clean house there in every way possible. Rachel, Dawn, Dr. Steve, I'm highly disturbed what's happening with the Islamification of America with Dearborn taking over every institution. What are we going to do? Trump making any moves to stop that? As long as it remains at state levels, there's not a lot I think he can do. It's just, if Michigan and wants to go Islamic, as it were, with all of this Muslim immigration, or what, like we're seeing with the Somali population in Minneapolis that almost won an election against Jacob Fry. It's their deal. Texas obviously is clamping down on it. So red states aren't going to allow it, but blue states might. And then the irony is they become conservative. They become conservative in the traditionalist sense, even more religious conservative than red states. So that's the irony in all of it. Yeah. So I don't think there's much Trump can do. Love USA, for all the people who are complaining Trump is not getting it done, how long has Trump been in office? Right. How many lawsuits have Democrats filed against Trump and Trump's policies blocked by Democrats? Absolutely. No, absolutely. No question. That's when we go. So I gave you the three perspectives of what happened on Tuesday. That's part of the first one. The first one is, look, this is no different than what we generally see every freaking off-year election. after new party takes D.C. Their voters can't wait to get to the polls, whereas the voters who just won the White House, the Senate, and Congress are very happy with that. They don't give a flip of what happens in Jersey. They don't care about what goes on in Virginia. I mean, these are like even fellow Virginians and New Jerseyans, particularly the low prop voters. And what Trump has implemented this last year is so amazing. Wait until, I mean, in terms of structurally, wait until you see the actual impact of all of it in the next several months. Now, there is some concern that there's at least some recession in certain sectors, in certain industries of the economy. But regardless, just watch what happens, and interest rates come down, and and the real estate market starts humming again, all that sort of stuff. Grant, yes, that's true. But again, remember, love you, so you can't argue with the song. If perception is the way it is, there has to be a political response to that. And that's what we're waiting to see. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, what can Trump do to end the war in Ukraine in a way that MAGA would not approve of? Start a war with Russia. Trump cannot get his hands more dirtied in Ukraine. MAGA hates Zelensky. Again, Fox News MAGA loves him. Okay, they love him, but they're not going to not vote for Trump because he betrayed Zelensky. Whereas the disaffected independent populists will not vote for Trump if he gets too close to Zelensky, because again, they just see this as a proxy war, not even just for NATO, but for the military-industrial complex. So now he's just got to let, as far as I'm concerned, he's just got to let that thing play itself out. He's got to call NATO back. That's the only thing that's emboldening Zelensky right now is that NATO keeps propping him up with funds and missiles. And the moment they stop funding that, again, Europe can continue to do this. But if the United States comes in and says enough, that MAGA would approve of. Oh, well, that's a very different one. Yeah, there's not much he can. I mean, again, stop arming Zelensky, and that will force Zelensky to the table. That's what Trump was trying to tell him when he said, "You have no cards. You have no cards." In the Oval Office, and that blow up, and then when he kicked him out of the White House, you got nothing, and you need to sign on the line there. That's the only thing that's going to give him MAGA's approval. MAGA is not pro Zelensky. MAGA is not pro international intervention. Period. And that's it. Period. There you go. Period. Full stop, like the auto pen justice would say. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. I will be your back porch professor all throughout the weekend, so look out for some cool video content from you guys are pretty merciless on my old rotting back porch. Yeah, I know. Give me some more super stickers, and maybe I can replace my back porch, right? Yeah, I'll be out there with you guys with all the updates on the latest. Love you. God bless.